Meanwhile, we have a number of people attacking Mike Pence as usual. And we get this, several times a week, often from Pete Buttigieg, but he's out of the picture now. So now AOC is going to pick up the torch of somebody on the left using faith hypocritically, cynically to advance their political ends. So we've got that. Then we've also got the left degrading and heaping scorn and mockery on faith. And, those two strategies are actually contradictory. You kind of have to choose one or the other. Because if faith is a stupid, silly, ridiculous thing that only dummies partake in, then you can't also use it to make a point, can you? So meanwhile, we have people attacking Mike Pence as usual. Mike Pence is attacked all the time. Mike Pence is the most hated man in Washington, even more than Donald Trump. Despite the fact that he hasn't done anything. Vice presidents don't do much in general, so that's no knock on Mike Pence. But he hasn't done anything really as a vice president to earn this scorn. He's not out there at gay pride rallies preaching fire and brimstone, into a speaker. He's not out there with a bullhorn shouting fire and brimstone. Despite how the left portrays him, that's not actually what he's doing. But in any case, they're after Mike Pence now because he's heading up the coronavirus task force, and he made the mistake of praying. So here's a tweet that has 18,000 likes currently. It's a picture of Pence and his team, heads bowed in prayer. And the caption says, Mike Pence and his coronavirus emergency team praying for a solution. We are so screwed. And this is why I talk about in my book, Church of Cowards, in stores now, you can get it on Amazon, wherever books are sold, that we face mockery and contempt in our culture if we practice our faith. If we give evidence of our faith in public, this is the kind of treatment we can expect to receive. Now, for many Christians across the world, it's quite different. It's quite more serious than that. They face not just mockery and scorn, although that as well, but along with that, there are machetes and rocks and guns and those sorts of things. We don't really have to worry about that. But even so, for many Christians in this country, just the mockery and the scorn and the contempt and the snide comments on the internet are enough to make them run for the hills, or better yet, run under their bed, or at least to hide their faith under the bed so nobody sees it so they don't get made fun of. And that's why I have so much respect for Mike Pence's unapologetic faith, or the unapologetic faith of anybody. But here's the point. Pence is not trying to solve the coronavirus problem only through prayer. If that's what they were doing, I'd be first in line to criticize. If that was their entire plan, they weren't doing anything else, I would be the first one to criticize that. But that's not what they're doing. They pray, and then they get down to the business of taking active steps, whatever active steps that they can personally take. The coronavirus is something that must be approached medically, scientifically, and there's nothing about prayer that precludes that. God gave us brains and expects us to use them. He gave us the capacity for science and medicine, expects us to use them too. If you have cancer, God does not want you to sit around the house not getting treated on the assumption that he'll heal you. In fact, Jesus says, don't tempt, not to tempt God. You don't tempt God, and that's kind of what, or you don't put God to the test, rather. And that's sort of what that would be. It's saying, well, I know, God, that you have provided modern medicine to us that we could use, but I'm not going to use that because I'm going to put you to the test, and I'm going to see if you're really going to heal me. That's not what we're told to do. In fact, we are specifically told not to do that. But that's not how most Christians operate. You take the steps you can, God will work in his time and his ways, and you do what you can also. So there's no conflict here. There's no problem. And by the way, to anyone disturbed by the sight of people praying over a medical or scientific issue, I've got bad news. I've got really bad news for you. Because did you know that most of the greatest scientific and medical minds in history have been Christians, have been people who pray? So are we going to throw Newton's ideas out the window? Probably the greatest scientific mind in history. his ideas are he was a devout Christian. Or Pascal or Galileo or Kepler or Boyle or on down the list. I mean, even outside of science, you look at any field, the smartest people, the greatest innovators, the greatest pioneers have, in many cases, been Christian. Da Vinci, Aquinas, Shakespeare, Mozart, Washington, Martin Luther King Jr., Edison, Tesla, Alexander Graham Bell, Adam Smith, Marconi, Dickens, Faulkner, Tolkien, Marco Polo, Neil Armstrong, Magellan, Columbus, Henry Ford, on down the list, all Christians. Thank you for tuning into the Daily Wire, one of the fastest growing conservative media outlets in the entire country. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and a subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of our content.